Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Have you found yourself when you're sitting there in front of a boss and they ask you to do something and you just simply say yes, knowing that you've got a ton of things that you need to get done before you can go home today? Do you also find that yourself maybe being with a loved one or maybe one of your children asking you to do something that you know you just don't have time to do, but you say yes anyway? Just finding yourself becoming more and more miserable with each passing day as you continue to find your life slipping away from your hands. Joining us on the Beyond 50 radio program today is someone who's going to be talking about how we can start with no and know will walk away with a new way to practice self-discipline and to feel confident in any decision-making process. I'd like to welcome to our program today who's going to be talking with us about how we can start with no. And I'd like to welcome to our program today our guest, Mr. Jay Camp. Thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Now, tell us how this was taught and why this is important for people to know.
The ability to say no?
Yes.
It all comes from our long-term aim, where are we headed? What are our responsibilities? And, if we've got responsibilities that override hey, by the way, can you cram this in today?
Right.
Well, if it's not part of my responsibility, I'm not going to really be able to do it and fulfill my responsibility. Which one would you like me to select? I mean, what would you like me to do here? Because I'm not going to be able to do it. So in order to fill those responsibilities, we have to be able to say no. But the real trick here, the real key is that so many people don't have a clear vision of what their long-term aim is, what their continuing tasks and responsibilities are. They haven't thought it through. In my book, Start with No, we call that mission and purpose. And without having that in a clear, concise manner, our decision making is oftentimes flawed. Decisions are made in the emotional part of the brain 100% of the time. There is no such thing as a logical decision. No one on the planet can make a logical decision. And so the key is to have as calm a base and emotion as possible. And when we have that mission and purpose in place, when we know our job is to drain the swamp, we don't get so upset about the alligator, so we're able to make good, solid decisions. So that's really the key.
Now, it's really interesting that when it comes to negotiation, we want to see our side at least win or have what it is we're looking for. But a lot of times when we feel the pressure from the other side that maybe that's slipping away, we start settling for whatever it is we can get. Why is it that we do that? It sounds to me like you were explaining that's more of an emotional response.
Well, it's totally emotional response. It's the fear of failure. But you know what? And I see it every time I'm coaching negotiations every day, and I have been for 25 years. And when I say coaching, I'm literally helping companies and individuals prepare to engage in some awfully important negotiations. And what's interesting to me is that the more clarity that my client has and what they're bringing to the negotiation, the more ability they have to create the vision of that for the other party. And so we don't have this compromised mindset. We don't carry this emotional fear of failing. We don't use the word win ever. And we don't use the word lose or win or lose, none of that. What we do say is we want to move our mission and purpose forward. We just don't want to go backward. So you'll find that ability to create vision is an art that not very many people have, nor do they know that they need to even to have it in their abilities. They don't even know it because all the win-win books talk about is how to divide up the pie or make the pie bigger and all that garbage. It just doesn't work in the field.
Isn't that the truth? Now, having a vision and a mission is very important, as you were saying, because it keeps us on track with what we're doing in the first place. Now, explain why that's important.
Well, it's all about decision-making. And, it's interesting to me when another party on the other side in a negotiation, for my university, I buy services and I buy technology. and I'm counting on being able to see what that person on the other side of the table is able to bring. If they can't help me see it, if they're all in a quagmire of intellectual garbage, I need to have the vision of what that they're bringing to me, that what it's going to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to be able to help me see that. And if they're not capable of helping me see that, they put themselves in a very weakened position. Because all I have to say to them is, why should I pay that much for that? And the fear will set in because they don't have the tools to create vision. They don't know how to do it. And so they'll go immediately to the compromise box and say, well, I could give you a 6% discount if you did this today.
Mm-hmm.
And all I've got to say is that the best you can do? And then I can say, why don't we cut to the chase, and you give me your very best offer, and then give me a week to think it over, and I'll call you back. So they give me their very bottom number, and they set themselves up, and they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take their offer, and I shop it amongst their competitors and find out who can create the vision so I can really get a handle on what I'm getting. And the chances are I'm not going to buy that product anyway,
mm-hmm.
even though they gave me their best price. And they'll sit there and scratch their head, I'm sure, somewhere in a bar over at Scotch and Soda because they're frustrated. They didn't get the deal. God, I gave them the best price. I gave them the cheapest price. What the world? I don't care about the price as much as I care about what's being delivered.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sad commentary on the books and training that's out there that these poor people fall into.
I think it's really interesting that you bring up the win-win scenario when somebody really believes that's the situation they're in, and you think, well, I don't know, I think one side here's not feeling like that.
It's got nothing to do with winning and losing. There is no such thing in negotiations. There's only moving your long-term aim forward and
mm-hmm.
or maintaining the status quo. Why take a bad deal? It's not a loss. You just maintained where you are. But you didn't take a bad deal. What a lot of people don't understand is if they make a bad deal and they cave in, that whole mindset multiplies itself in their own mind. And the next thing you know, that's the only way I can make a deal, so that it even gets worse. It perpetuates itself. And I know I can't get full price, so why even bother? I'll just discount in the very first proposal and cut to the chase and hopefully I'll get the deal quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a terribly sad commentary.
Now, give us an example, if you can, of how the no negotiations, let's say at an international level, have been very effective.
Yeah, we just completed about a $280 million contract in China on the mainland, and we had unfortunately a Chinese national salesman against a Chinese national buyer, and the Chinese national salesman was scared to death that he was going to embarrass his counterpart, the buyer. So he offered a $7 million discount that we didn't even know about.
Oh wow!
And because he wanted the person to be to like him. So we see this all over the world in all cultures. All this cultural stuff is kind of funny, but fortunately the buyer was greedy. Because the salesman gave $7 million to start, surely he would go to $9 million. So, the buyer rejected and said, no, you must do much better. And the salesman talked to the sales manager, and the sales manager talked to our CFO, and the CFO called me right away and said, you got to get in on this, Jim. So I started coaching, and we pulled the $7 million deal immediately. We took it back away from the buyer. Now suddenly the buyer doesn't have a $7 million discount. He's got zero discount. But we weren't trying to be mean. In all sincerity, we had gone to engineering, and we had asked, what are the ramifications on this product line if we lose $7 million of margin? And he said, well, we've got a research and development program to bring the next technology forward that's critical to their market share and that's going to cost us almost $6 million bucks.
Uh-huh.
So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot by demanding a discount. So what we did as our CFO, I coached our CFO to engage their CFO. I gave him what we call a checklist to execute. My CEO, I had my CEO that I'm coaching. I had him prepare a letter with a check. We put a checklist together. He wrote a letter. We went to the product manager who was responsible for the profit and loss, and we engaged him on what a large discount would do to his future and marketplace, and we actually got a 5% price increase because they wanted that research accomplished. So we said no to the $7 million and ended up with a price increase, brought us in about $2.5 million above our 7.
That's always good too.
Yeah, but we created the vision around what they were doing to themselves, asking for. They were shooting themselves in the foot. They weren't even. That buyer wasn't thinking of the research going into the new technology for their market share.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating when we grow up, we get out of school, we get out there and start doing our own thing, and then we tend to have that natural instinct to say yes to everything. We're trying to improve in our boss's eyes, for instance, and we want that next raise or that next promotion. And how we can tend to sell ourselves out by overdoing or overpromising and sometimes even underdelivering. And that's really empowering when a person gets to a point where they finally say, I'm just going to say no. I know it's going to hurt me at this point right now, but eventually it gets easier.
Well, there's really a key here. And the key is that new person going out in the world wants to be successful, is dying just emotionally wrapped around the axle. Just success is everything. I mean, all these years you spent trying to get there, and imagine the emotion, right? I mean, I was there once in my life. I know what that was like, and the emotion of it all. It's almost intoxicating to get out there. And what's really sad is you pick up Getting to Yes, or you pick up one of these compromise books, and you think you got to be liked. Nobody talks about respect. The great leaders are looking to respect the people they're leading. They're looking for the people on their team that they can respect, and that can create vision around why we shouldn't do that. And so when a young person learns at a young age, gee, I can't do that. I don't think I should do that. And here's why. What happens if I fail and don't accomplish this? How important will this then be? And those two interrogative questions create vision for the leadership, and they go, gee, you're right, I didn't think of that. There's a person that said no and created vision around why they said no. I made the decision, you're right. That's a person I want on my team at a higher level. Not a yes person that just, crawls into the woodwork just dying, doing whatever whim comes along.
Now, Jim, you also outline in your book, this day and age, it's pretty difficult for people to even imagine they can walk in and say, to negotiate a raise, but the power of the no system, you're able to do this. If you can, describe the scenario of how that works when a person's thinking, hey, I'd like to have a raise, but, these are tough economic times.
Well, yeah, but the whole key is being able to take stock in exactly, the whole idea is to take stock in exactly what we're delivering, right? What are we delivering to the party here? And if we've done this properly, we've already negotiated an agenda that in 6 months we're going to review my performance, and my performance will dictate a negotiation for us to increase my revenue or my pay. And if we haven't done that, shame on us. That's the start. And if we haven't done that, okay, so it's now time to sit down and talk about my performance. I want to be in a position, and I coach my clients to be in a position to be capable of creating vision of all that's been accomplished and all that's going to be accomplished in the next 6 months. And how do we secure that? How do we keep that going? And that, that is really the key ingredient. I know I sound like a broken record creating vision, but the boss is going to make the decision emotionally with vision of what they see coming, what they see has been accomplished, and where they see we're going. And in fact, I just read in the paper today the highest paid university president in the country is E. Gordon Gee at Ohio State, and he said he was so pleased because the board gave him a $275,000 bonus, even in this day and age, and an 8% raise annually, which it's a lot of money. And the chairman of the board of trustees, who's Les Wexner, the founder of the limited stores, it says it's very clear that the board of trustees has a vision that President Gee has taken the university from where it was to where it is, and we see very clearly where we're going, and we're very pleased.
Ah.
And that's a quote in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So even in these terrible times, I mean, I don't know about the rest of the country, but the state of Ohio has a $9 billion budget fall. And higher education has already been told they're going to be cut. And here's the Board of Trustees giving the president more money. Go figure, right? It's what they see.
Now, when it comes to negotiations, who would you consider to be someone that you esteem from historical experience?
My dad.
And tell us about that.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a youngster, Dad always wanted to have a summer cabin, just a little place to take the family and do a little boating, and he always was looking out for something. And we lived in western Pennsylvania, and one time in the Wall Street Journal there was an article that the Queen of England was selling lots in Canada on a lake, waterfront lots, for $400, sight unseen, and you had to put in your bid. So we did. We got a lot in Canada. We took our canoe and boat and went up there, and when I was about 10 years old, and we paddled into this wilderness, and we found the lot had been staked out, and we hired an old trapper named Joe Bollier to build a cottage up on this cliff, and it was a little, just a little ragtag cottage, not a house by any means, no insulation or anything, no plumbing, no electrical wiring, anything like that, just a roof and walls, a place in the summertime where we could sleep and run our boat. And when we got back up there the next summer and the cottage had been finished, of course we were thrilled. And Dad looked at Joe and said, "Joe, I've got to ask you, how did you do with this? Did you make out okay?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get what you needed, in profit to keep going?" He said, "Well, Larry, honestly, I got hammered on this one because I underestimated what it was going to cost to carry all the materials up that 80-foot cliff to get it up here up on top." And my dad said, "Well, Joe, I'm going to give you a check for $800. Would that make you whole? Would that be okay?" And I thought Joe was going to cry. I was only like 11 years old, and nobody had ever done that for Joe before.
Uh-huh.
And Joe became fast friends of ours until his death, probably 25 years later. And I remember Joe left, and I said, "Dad, why did you pay Joe more money?" He said, "Jim, I want him to look out for us on this lake for as long as he's here and as long as we're coming here. I want him to have great respect for our family. We're guests in this country." And I've got to tell you, he was that forever. And to this day, we still have that cottage it's been 50-some years now. And we have great people, we have great respect for folks on the lake, and they respect us.
Mm-hmm.
Carried over. And I learned that from my dad.
Pretty amazing stuff we can learn from our parents when we pay attention, huh?
Isn't that amazing? All you got to do is pay a little attention.
Now, you actually have this outlined in a couple of books from what I understand. Tell us about that.
Have what outlined?
The nose system.
Oh yeah, it's all there. Well, that's not true. Yeah, our negotiations management system is not there. That's our secret. That's proprietary. That's for our coaching clients. That's where we do the, we have about $4 billion going on around the world this month in coach negotiation. So that's the system we use to actually coach. But all the fundamentals of what we do are in both books. All the behaviors, all the structure, it's all there. There's actually a structure of negotiation that you actually fill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when you get to 5, you're finished and you've had a very successful negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Now, and this is a system that you have at least in these 2 books anyway.
Oh yeah.
That really is applicable to just about anything, isn't it?
Well, Oxford Dictionary defines negotiation as a human effort to bring about agreements between 2 or more parties, with all parties having the right to veto.
Mm.
So it's nothing more than seeking agreements. That's what negotiation is. And we've been making agreements since childhood. So there's a lot of people that think they're really good at making agreements that are still giving away the store. It's kind of interesting.
I've seen plenty of that, that's for sure.
It's out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a website people can find out more about this?
Yeah, there sure is. They can go to startwithno.com. They'll learn about my new university with my courses and mastery of everything we're teaching, which is all state-of-the-art with patented learning technology. They also get a free copy of the book Start With No. They can download it onto their computer and MP3 player and listen to it.
Thank you again for joining us on the program today, Jim. It was a pleasure to figure out that no can actually get you pretty much what you want.
Well, I appreciate your having me.
You bet. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We also thank you for tuning in. You can also be sure to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That's the number 50, and find out how you can sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. We'll also have a great hot link for this J-Camp University, so you can find out more about that as well. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. Remember, live your day past halfway.